Instagram. It's a fan favourite social media platform and one of the most used all around the world. Best known for its photo sharing, many people turn to it each year to try and become an influencer. But if you are sharing pictures on the platform, you need to be warned that Instagram has been known to kill creators' accounts from time to time. And so in this video, we're doing a deep dive into some of the most interesting and infamous stories of creators who have been banned off the app. I think I should let you guys know that I have my own Instagram for only the most thirsty of pictures. You guys should follow me there, as well as my other socials, all linked in the description. With that said, let's get into things. So for the first entry in this brand new episode of the Book of the Banned, we have none other than Andy Tate. Let's address the elephant in the room. He's probably the most famous social media banning ever, and I've never discussed him on the channel before, so let's do it now. If you've somehow been living under a rock over the past 6 or so months and don't know who this guy is, this British-American kickboxer has been the talk of the town online this year, primarily because of his controversial views on gender and masculinity. While his social media presence has only really exploded recently, his controversial take can be traced back 4 years. For example, in 2017, he tweeted that depression wasn't real, and in 2016, he came under fire for allegedly racist and homophobic comments made on Twitter. More recently though, his attention has been set towards the battle of the sexes, with many critics of Tate believing that he is a sexist. As the weeks and months went by, he grew larger and larger and essentially became a cult figure online, with especially young, impressionable men taking to him for advice and guidance. Now, the struggles of young men today trying to find an identity is a conversation for another day, and a very interesting one at that, but nonetheless, a lot of them rallied right behind Andy Tate. They rallied behind him spouting about becoming an alpha male at any cost, as viewing women as masculine imperative, that they're meant to be controlled, dominated, and sometimes used in order to create more wealth. It was a lot, and some of his genuine quotes are really shocking to see in an era where PC content is more and more mainstream. Many people gravitated towards his unapologetic tell it as it is style of doing things, something that we've seen a lot over the past few years in modern Western culture wars. Now, it has to be said that his followers were in the minority. Most people saw Andy Tate as just another guy out there on the internet who's gonna say the next big, shocking thing to grow larger and larger in the minds of the masses. But essentially all social media sites shut him down, Instagram included. They said they found him too dangerous, his opinions might cause harm. And this is really one of a kind. Many people even claim that he militarized his followers. And in response to this, Tate actually claimed that he was playing a comedic character, that what he was saying wasn't meant to be taken seriously, allegedly donating over $1 million to women's charities in an attempt to get replatformed. But a few weeks down the road from his terminations, and Tate remains to be taken down. So with that hot potato out of the way, we can finally get on to maybe a few stories that you might not have heard of. And Instagram bans people generally for one of two reasons. There's more, but it's generally one of the two, and that's either sex and nudity or political extremist. This next story is one of the former, and it's one of the wildest things I have ever heard. Making any of these videos, this is one of the wildest stories, definitely up there. So this is an Instagrammer known online as Kitty Lixo. If you've never heard of her before, she is an adult model, podcast host, and an OnlyFans creator. And she was actually quite popular on Instagram at a point in time, having over 150,000 followers on her account. However, as you might already be aware, Instagram has various rules set in place for what you can and cannot show. One of the most frequently broken rules, as I said earlier, or at least the ones that people try and break the most often, is its policy on nudity. You can therefore assume that being an OnlyFans creator can sometimes be somewhat difficult, because often your content will be taken down and your account will be suspended. This happened to Lixo multiple times, but she was able to get her account back every time, to the delight of her fans. What you might not know though is the method that Kitty Lixo employed to get her account back, because according to her, she actually did it every time. So pause the video right now and maybe hazard a little guess. How do you think Kitty Lixo said that she got her account back every time? Because the answer might shock you. So she revealed on various podcasts that she was on that after her account was banned for the first time, she contacted a Meta employee, someone that she apparently knew already, and slept with him in order to get her account back. Now, she did state that this was not a quid pro quo kind of deal where it was expressly said that he would unban her if she slept with him. She actually said that she was the one to socially engineer the situation, And I guess everyone won, right? For now, because her account would soon be rebanned and rebanned again. And in the end, she didn't just sleep with one Meta employee, not even two, she slept with 3 different members of Meta to get her account unbanned several different times. And if I'm not mistaken, her account has yet again been suspended, so somewhere out there, a lucky Instagram employee is about to get his jollies. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I respect the hustle. She did that 3 times to get her account back. Fair play to her. So if you thought that story was crazy, this next one is also going to be crazy. We're still on the topic of sex and nudity and stuff, but this story goes way different. It's way out of left field, and so we're shifting things over to a Mr. Rob Kardashian, the now 35-year-old, who's best known for being on Keeping Up with the Kardashians and coming runner-up in season 13 of ABC's Dancing with the Stars. He's often referred to as the Forgotten Kardashian, on account that when compared to his older sisters, Kourtney, Kim and Khloe, he is less remembered. If you were to remember him though, it might be because of his actions on Instagram in July of 2017, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. To understand the events of July 2017, we have to go back a little bit further to January of 2016, because this is when Rob Kardashian met Angela Renee White, otherwise known as Blac Chyna. It took just 3 months for these two to get engaged, which is usually a bad thing, but in this case was also still a bad thing, because by the end of the year the couple had split, with Rob posting on his Instagram that they were no longer a couple. Though the reason they took such a short time to marry might be down to the fact they actually had a daughter together. Dream Kardashian was born in November 2016, conveniently just under 9 months after the two engaged. But as I said, the two would break up shortly after, but this breakup would only last a few days before they reconciled and decided to try it again. They've since said that their breakup was in the heat of the moment, and the two would live together happily ever after, for 2 months before they broke up again. So this takes us to February 2017, and this is finally when their story takes a break after an action-packed year. 6 months go by, absolutely nothing. It was then the heralded July 2017, and out of absolutely nowhere, this was a shock to all of the public, Rob Kardashian posts revenge porn of the mother of his child. Yes, this actually happened. Yes, it was very illegal. His defense was that she cheated on him, which might have happened. Tell you what a fact is though, this dude broke the law and posted nude pictures of the mother of his child. And he was permanently banned because of it. For now, because actually if you go and you look up Robert Kardashian on Instagram, you will see that he does have an account, but it's actually not run by him. It's instead run by Jenner Communications because he is no longer allowed to actually have an account, which is honestly hilarious to me. I find it really funny that he has an account, but he is legally not allowed to touch it. Still on the topic of sex and nudity, we have yet another story here, and this one's completely different from all the rest of them, and I want us to start thinking critically about it, because there's definitely a conversation to be had here. And it caused outrage from various news articles for a very specific reason. So the person we're going to be talking about is Grace Coddington, a now 81-year-old former model and former creative director at Vogue magazine. So what was her heinous crime that got her banned? Well, she posted an image of a naked woman that she drew as a promotion for an auction, including her favourite nude photographs. I am going to blur it just in case YouTube wants to ban me too, but if you want to see it for research purposes, it is out there on the internet. Now, you might see this near stick figure, this rough drawing, as not really overtly sexual. It's just a naked woman. There is no sex appeal in that, unless you're fucking weird. It's just art. There's really not much to get off to, unless you're desperate. But Instagram remained solid with their no nudity clause and banned her temporarily. As I said, there was an outcry by a lot of people saying that Instagram got this one wrong, and so they reviewed it, and they agreed that they made a mistake on this. A spokesperson stated, "When our team processes reports from other members of the Instagram community, we occasionally make a mistake. In this case, we wrongfully removed content, and we worked to rectify the error as soon as we were notified. We apologise for any inconvenience." Fair play, but this is where I want you guys to think about this critically. This was a piece of art. Was it only unbanned because it wasn't very detailed? What if it wasn't a non-distinct drawing? What if it was perhaps coloured in? What if the pen lines were hardened, etc.? Would it have been unbanned? Additionally, the person in this picture is meant to be her, I assume. What if she drew someone else? Would that have changed anything? Is the unbanned simply because this image isn't inherently sexual? How much does context have to play in these kind of things? That's a question that I want to pose to you guys, because as with all art on social media, when it comes to their policies and stuff, a line does have to be drawn somewhere. And not to say I don't think Instagram were correct to unban her, I just wonder where they deem that line to be. And so to end things on the sex and nudity portion of this video, I want to talk about the most recent of all of these bannings. This one literally happened 2 or 3 days ago as of recording this video. I'm only going to talk about it briefly because it is the most obvious of all of these, but as of a couple of days ago, The Hub was banned off of Instagram. Instagram seems like it's really starting to ramp up with its high-profile suspensions and deletions. As I said, this really shouldn't come as a shock. I'm actually quite surprised they had an account in the first place. What were they posting? There's probably not a lot that they could have uploaded, but nonetheless, at one point, The Hub did have an account on Instagram, and as of a couple of days ago, they no longer do. At the start of this, I said that people generally get banned for one of 2 reasons, the first one being sex and nudity, and the second being political extremism. So let's talk about the latter. So it's a classic story that I've spoken a good few times now in these videos. Political extremism has been deemed unacceptable on Instagram by the higher-ups, and Gavin McInnes is the next example of someone who used their account on Instagram as well as Facebook to spread messages of hate and violence, and was therefore banned because of it. If you don't know him by name, you might know him by role, because he's actually the leader of the Proud Boys, a group that's described on Wikipedia as, and I quote, "an American far-right, neo-fascist and exclusively male organization that promotes and engages in political violence in the United States. The Proud Boys has been designated as a terrorist group in Canada and New Zealand." Those are not my words, those are Wikipedia's. So it shouldn't really be too much of a surprise that the leader of this group would have some pretty controversial opinions and would very likely promote violence on his social media sites, especially since, again, they engage in political violence as said on Wikipedia. The Ground designated that this man was too dangerous to stay up, and so they struck his account down. Now, the Proud Boys are generally associated with the absolute furthest ideas that the right could come up with. They're not generally reflective of your average right-wing voter, but the next few people might be a little bit more so, even if they are still pushing on the extremes. I'm going to label this one controversial right-wing pundits because these banned people were some of the more controversial right-wing political influencers. We have names such as Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Paul Joseph Watson, Paul Nehlen, Laura Loomer, and Louis Farrakhan. These guys all fall under this category as they were each given bans from the service according to The Atlantic. And I want to play a bit of devil's advocate here and ask, was this a good thing? Let me preface this by saying that out of the ones that I've heard of, I don't generally agree with them on practically any issue. As I said, some of them I really don't know too much, but when it comes to your Yiannopoulos, your Joneses and your Watsons, I am familiar with them. But when I was at university, the final essay I wrote was on algorithmic radicalization, specifically in the build-up to the 2021 Capitol attacks. And one of the things that I found from analysing several different articles explaining how they were planned was that many of the radicalized individuals that stormed the Capitol isolated themselves from the rest of mainstream media. They filled up their own social media platforms with like-minded individuals, and I wonder that if these people weren't deplatformed like they were, would the hive minds of far-right social media apps have been effective as they were? By taking these people off Instagram, they're only going to pop up somewhere else and likely take a large portion of their audience with them. Would it not have been better to keep them where you can see them? Limit the posts that cross the line, obviously, and then keep an eye on them instead of take them down. Because these people aren't just going to die down, they're just going to move. Again, that is me just playing devil's advocate, but I do understand that Instagram for a while was housing some dangerous political extremism, or at least according to several Atlantic articles that I read during research. But nonetheless, these guys' messages reaching their fans is inevitable. But I also do understand that if you keep these people on Instagram, their content is going to be more available for the masses. So I can definitely understand why they did it, and to be honest, I think they were right in doing so. But again, I want to play a bit of devil's advocate and get a bit of a dialogue flowing, maybe a little bit of a debate. Let me know what you guys have to say. So our next story is strange, but it also could be quite socially important despite not being very well known about. and that's Indigenous Beaders. So it's slightly weird to say that of all content types on Instagram, for some reason many people that upload Indigenous bead content have claimed that they've been deplatformed on the gram, which has led a lot of them to suspect Instagram of racial biases because, let's be fair, there's absolutely no reason that beaders should be suspended on Instagram. Now, according to a Vice article I read, over 20 different Indigenous beader creators banded together back in January 2021. Initially believing that it was against Instagram's terms of service to sell on there, but as it turns out, they were totally within their rights to do that. It was then thought that these people were the victims of racial targeting, with racists going out of their way to report their accounts, especially because beadwork is apparently very important to Native American culture. This was reported all over the news, and so Instagram did eventually look into things, even if it did take a while to happen. Though, based on the fact that articles soon dried up on the topic, it's unknown if these cries for help fell on deaf ears for a second time, or if Instagram eventually did face the music. Speaking of racism, this next chapter in the book of the band is going to be designated to the UK rapper Wiley, who was terminated in 2020 after an anti-Semitic tirade on the gram. So Wiley is best known for his music, often being referred to as the godfather of grime. He currently has 1.7 million monthly streams on Spotify, but you will not find him on Instagram anymore, simply because he isn't allowed on there. According to this BBC article that reported on the incident, he name-dropped several Jewish celebrities such as Lord Alan Sugar, comedian David Baddiel, and BBC presenter Emma Barnett in this anti-Semitic attack. It wasn't just on Instagram though. He also spread his anti-Jew hate message on Facebook and Twitter. And here are just a few things that he's quoted as saying or typing. Jewish people are cowards. Do something to me. I'm waiting. Jewish people act tough, but they hide behind the police. And so on and so forth. I'm not going to tell you everything that he said about Jews because he hates them. He also accused them of owning the banks, owning the police, and secretly running the country. I mean, looking at some of this guy's tweets, his heart is either poisoned by hate, or he has a few screws loose, or even both. That's not the important thing though. The important thing was that Instagram saw this and decided to put an end to it by disallowing him from ever posting there again. So this is going to sound a bit weird, but in this part of the video, we need to do a history lesson of the 20th century to learn about the Kennedy family. So obviously John F. Kennedy was the most famous of all of the Kennedys. He was the 35th president until he was assassinated in one of the most shocking moments in American history. It's common general knowledge that his older brother Joseph Kennedy was primed to be the politician of the family, but was killed in World War II. His younger brother Robert Kennedy, on the other hand, would be the US Senator of New York until his assassination in 1968. Robert Kennedy would leave behind 11 children, some more important than others, but most of them are still alive today. Robert Jr. though is of particular importance to us in this video because it's him, John F. Kennedy's nephew, who has been given a permanent ban from Instagram. And the reason for this is that he is a fervent anti-vaxxer. The first signs of him being an anti-vaxxer, at least to the public, date all the way back to 2005, when he declared his unwavering support for the scientifically debunked notion that vaccines cause autism. And since then, he's become a strong anti-vaccine advocate, sharing anti-vax rhetoric all over his Instagram during the pandemic especially. And this has been deemed as spreading false information by Meta. Apparently spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories violate Instagram's policies, so Robert Jr. was given the boot. This news story would resurface in just the last month though, as a charity that Rob Jr. founded, Children's Health Defense, was also given a ban, with Instagram thinking that it was based on lies, cherry-picking arguments that fitted within its narrative. And so Rob Jr., nephew to one of the most famous world leaders of all time, will never be allowed back on one of the most famous social media platforms of all time. So this next story is perhaps the most different and distinct reason that any of these people have been given a ban from Instagram. And it comes from Hamza, who you might know as yet another YouTuber online whose work revolves around self-help, self-improvement, and becoming a strong man. Once again, his kind of content is primarily targeted towards young men who lack purpose and direction. But since these guys have been getting a lot of hate recently, I want to go a bit against the grain and put out some support for some of them, because they're not all Andy Tates. And the difference between the two of them, Hamza Ahmed and Andrew Tate, is that Andrew Tate's content seems to more be about externally pushing women down, Whereas, at least from the videos that I've seen of Hamza Ahmed, I don't watch him all the time, but at least from the videos that I've seen of him, his content seems to be more about pushing men up, about self-improvement, about becoming a better man. For this reason, he told his fans in a video that's since raked in over 300,000 views that they should delete Instagram, citing that it's not normal or healthy to have it because comparing yourself to Photoshop models spending daddy's money to go on holiday isn't good for your mental health. Something else not good is the fact that its algorithm is incredibly good at its job, and so you might be on it for an hour without even knowing, and you probably wouldn't have learnt anything new, you would have just wasted your time. And even if you have all the willpower in the world like this dude Hamza Ahmed, even if you know that it's a waste of time, you still will probably get caught up in it. So he sent out this message, and I skimmed over the video. It's about 42 minutes, but I got the gist. Nothing horribly misogynistic, nothing threatening violence, nothing sexual. And in the end, Instagram decided to do his job for him, and they actually banned him. Literally for speaking out against the platform, to my understanding. He made a video in response, and yeah, to his knowledge, he was banned for literally saying you should not go on Instagram. It's absolutely not grounds for termination, at least not in my opinion. Still, it happened, and I can't find his account on Instagram, so I assume that he's still gone, which is very controversial. I'd actually like to hear from Instagram to find out why. Maybe I've misinterpreted things here, but at least from what I've seen, I find this to be quite unfair. And I understand these social media apps, they are privately owned, they can have whoever they do or don't want on there. But as years have gone by, bannings are starting to get more and more commonplace, and I wonder if there'll ever be a time where you can just get banned off of Instagram because you say something bad about it. Or you get banned off YouTube because you say something bad about YouTube. Maybe that's just me wearing a tinfoil hat, but I'm very confident that the argument about free speech online is only going to get more prominent as the years go by. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Make sure to follow me on all of my socials, especially my Instagram, for sexy pictures like this. And please let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do next, because I'm only 124 videos in and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.